You know, we don't think much of the spark plug, do we? Unless we're trying to solve a misfire concern. But you know, a spark plug has a tough job to do, and it has to do it in a very tough environment. And each one has a story to tell, to the knowledgeable technician, that is. And that's the topic for today's Service Done Right. Today's episode of Service Done Right is brought to you by Autolite, igniting your passion. Visit www.autolite.com today. Spark plugs work in a tough environment. They must withstand extreme temperature cycles and high pressures. They must be sufficiently insulated to keep the high voltages of today's ignition systems contained and prevent it from arcing through the ceramic insulator. All of the internal components of the spark plug, the insulator, terminal post, center electrode, and outer shell, must be completely sealed to avoid creating a combustion pressure loss. And they're expected to last thousands of miles, even though they're firing thousands of times a minute. So the next time you're removing the spark plugs, show them a little respect. Take the time to read the story that they have to share. You just might learn something that will help you ensure that the new plugs you're installing last as long, if not longer, than the original ones did. Our first example shows normal wear. There are no abnormal deposits or discoloration, and you can see that the electrode and ground strap, or side electrode, are slightly rounded. The gap is also larger than specified. And here's a little side note for you. When replacing spark plugs, it's still necessary to verify the plug gap. And when you do, use a round wire feeler gauge like this one, and not those tapered wheels that the guy off the tool truck gives you. I prefer a go, no-go check to avoid damaging the electrode. And if you do have to adjust the gap, use the tool to make the adjustment. Another common condition is a pink or reddish discoloration of the insulator and ground strap. This is caused by fuel additives, and it's perfectly normal. One discoloration that is often mistaken for a problem is this one. It's called a corona stain, and usually discolors the ceramic insulator in the area that is not protected by the spark plug boot. This is caused by oil and dirt particles suspended in the air around the spark plug. Now, when the plug fires, it generates a lot of static electricity, and that attracts these particles to the exposed ceramic. Our next example is also common, but it's not normal. Carbon tracks running from the terminal end along the outside of the ceramic to the hex. This is caused by an electrical short between the plug shell and the terminal end. Typically, it can be caused by old or cracked spark plug boots, dirt or oil contamination on the insulator shell, or even a spark plug gap that has grown too large. Another side note for you, make sure that you keep your spark plug sockets clean and that you clean the insulators of the spark plugs prior to installation. After all, where do you think that oil and dirt debris are coming from? The next example is one caused by improper installation or removal. And this illustration is obvious, a cracked or broken ceramic insulator. But the more common type of damage to the plug because of improper installation, that is, over-tightening, is a separation between the ceramic and the shell itself. Very difficult to see, causes all kinds of problems. How do you avoid that? Always use a torque wrench and tighten the plug to the OE specification. Spark plugs can also give us a clue to the engine's overall condition. Plugs with a smooth, dark discoloration that may even appear a little wet indicates the presence of unburned fuel. Back in the old days, we would start looking for an overly rich condition, but today, don't discount the possibility of a weak ignition system, a leaky fuel injector, or even a spark plug installed that is not the right one for the application. A plug-in that has a heavier coating of black deposits may be the result of oil in the combustion chamber, especially on higher mileage engines or engines that are improperly maintained. White ashy deposits can be an indication of coolant in the combustion chamber. Coolant in the exhaust stream is a common cause of P0420, P0430 catalytic converter codes. You see, this is called poisoning the cat. Now, often in these cases, you can clean the converter and restore it to service, but if the underlying condition isn't corrected, that problem is just going to return. Reading spark plugs seems to be not as common today as it was in the pre-emissions era, but even now, the spark plug has a lot of information to share to the technician who understands the language. I hope you enjoyed today's edition of Service Done Right. I'm Pete Meyer. Thanks for watching.